Hello, Don.
Hello, Mr. Jones.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me back again.
Well, I will tell you, it
Yeah.
is sometimes it's hard sometimes getting people, but it's always good to know that you've got my back, Don.
Yeah, it's like late night the next day. You're like, oh, hey, how about a podcast recording? And I'm like, sure, sure, why not? You're pretty easy though.
Yeah, it doesn't it's very low prep on your part.
Yeah, yeah. My wife was like, oh, you're on a podcast tonight. What are you going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, that used to really probably freak me out if I wouldn't know exactly what was going to happen. And I'm just like, I don't know. This is
Well,
actually my first podcast of the week. I have one on Sunday too
really.
with, yeah, Diogo wants to start something new and he asked me. So,
So I know in times past he had I thought maybe one had started up. I couldn't tell. So is he
uh,
started podcasting?
yeah, he and Ahimsa do one called some. Oh man, what is that? Adventure something. Um, we played. I was on there once before, and we played Morkborg with him and Ahimsa and Jeff Goad, who used to be on Appendix and Bookshelf.
I used to listen to
Where
that.
yeah, and then also on Spellburn.
Oh, great. No,
Mm-hmm.
Diogo's a great guy. So is this the
Yeah,
same
Dave was awesome.
podcast or is he doing a new one?
I think it's a different one. I don't think this might be a pilot, so maybe I
Mm.
shouldn't have revealed it.
Well, it's interesting because the way you stated, I thought there was, and I got confused. So, well, that's good.
Mm.
He's a great guy. I was hoping to have seen him at Gen Con. There's a zine
Oh,
meetup, but he
yeah.
never showed up for that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I actually did hang out with him for a bit, and I missed you. We were gonna maybe have dinner together, and I was actually only there for like 4 hours on Friday and maybe 3 hours on Saturday. No, Thursday and Friday. So I wasn't there a long time.
So why did you go?
It's where all the beautiful people go.
Yeah, but you only take so much beauty at one time before you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm social, but I do get burned out easily. But every I've been going to Gen Con and Origins for like since 2011, like every single year except for 2020 and up until now. And I would always work. I'd work for my ticket and room. I worked for friends who had companies, and I was like, I'm too old for this. Like it's exhausting because then you come back home and you go back to work and you work a full week. So it's just tiresome. And the older I get, the worse it is. So I was like, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to go. So I just went. Um, my wife has a cousin who lives down there, so I could stay like he's about 6 miles away, and he knows all the good places to eat and drink. So yeah.
So so did you just mainly hit the dealer hall for that short period of time? Like, what was your activity or activities?
Yeah, I didn't play any games. I hit the dealer hall. Um, I'm friends with a lot of the DCC crew, so it's always nice to see them, like Wayne Snyder,
Right.
Tim DeShane, and of course Doug, and Harley, and who else was hanging with James McGeorge, Dak, who does the crawlzine. So we're just hanging out, talking, shop, and yeah. So it's just like we used to. I always call it nerd summer camp because you'd see these are the people you saw once or twice a year,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I kind of wanted to see everybody again.
Well,
So
yeah, because it did not make sense to go just for the dealer hall because that's really not
mm-mm.
worth going to. Not well, if you're there, it's worth going to, but it's not worth going there to go to.
Right, well, because you end up spending money you didn't really need to spend, right?
Well, the thing is like it's so crowded, and only
Oh
a
yeah,
fraction of it is really RPG stuff, and a lot of the stuff
yeah,
is
yeah.
you can just go to a much calmer convention and spend a little more
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's true. But I kind of like that. As much as I say I'm not very social, like I kind of love like big crowds like that.
well, you don't have to
But
talk
it
to the people.
was right. But it was really crowded. I thought it was really busy. Like I don't know, I hadn't been since 2019, so it didn't exist in 2020, right? But like it just seemed busier than I'd ever seen it before. And people were just crunched in there.
Yeah, I heard 100,000 people throughout the whole
Mm,
week. Yeah, I
yeah.
grew and I worked, had some time, did some stuff. I mean, it was overall a good experience,
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely something.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of love it, and I was like, I don't really know if I need to do this, because you buy a 4-day ticket, and then you only stay for like 2 days, travel down there. But I'm even as I say, I'm never going to do that again. I'm like, I'd love to do that again.
Yeah, I was, working the booths. I mean, the reason I went was because free board and free pass. But
Hmm.
and the idea of sleeping in a room with 2 to 3 other guys that I don't know,
Oh yeah,
the potential for somebody snoring. I mean, it's just.
yeah,
I think I'm of a particular age too. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, but it worked out great.
right,
Made
right,
some friends. I don't know, deep
cool,
friends, but it really was. It worked
yeah,
out as well as could be expected.
yeah. And what booth were you working in?
It was the Wogdy booth. So remember where the Marvel RPG was being sold?
No,
Well, it was
cool,
next to that.
okay. I don't know if I made it out that far. I don't
I'm
know.
sure you did.
Yeah.
It just was a press. I mean, I ended up buying stuff from the Greek classical revival or Orthodox
Hmm.
or whatever that's called. And I
Yeah.
only realized because he yelled at somebody, says, "Hey, you like RPGs?" Which is a stupid thing to say. But he said, "Hey, do you
Right.
like RPGs?" And it caught my attention. I looked over and it's like, oh, I looked at their stuff and asked for a quick pitch, and he kept trying to pitch, more like, "No, I'm sold. Give me this, this, and
Hmm.
this." It's like,
Huh.
but I would not have noticed it had he not just yelled randomly, "Do
Yeah.
you like
Yeah.
RPGs?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of weird pitches that didn't need to happen, I walked past the Outcast Silver Raiders,
oh my
and
goodness.
I'm like, man, I saw this on Kickstarter. I didn't back it, but this looks really nice, and it's all spread out. I'm like, this is gorgeous, and the books look great. So I'm just kind of standing there, and the guy just starts like hardcore. This is an RPG, and it's kind of grim, and it's like this, and I'm just like, I'm just waving my hand. I'm like, you don't need to waste. Like I'm sold. Like I'm reaching for my wallet, and he keeps on going. I'm like, no, dude, I got the. You can stop right
Yeah.
there.
So I had a friend, he's the one that turned me on. He said, like, "Hey, so they're going to be there." And I didn't know them from Adam. I said,
Hmm.
"Well, he recommended, I'll just look." And I saw it, and it's just like, I barely even flipped through a book. I'm like, I
Yeah,
have to own. I don't know if I get to play it, but I have to own this.
yeah. I mean, they're just gorgeous books, right? Like they are nicely put together. Uh, yeah.
I was telling somebody today, it's like, I don't think there's anything that they do that is ingenious, but it is the
Hmm.
most perfectly executed book I think I have seen
Hmm.
in a long time, if maybe not ever. It is just
Yeah.
well executed, every space well thought out and used,
Hmm.
layout perfect, everything is amazing.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. They don't like. It's not groundbreaking, but I found some cool stuff. I'm like, oh, that's actually really neat. Like the whole like watch added. Maybe it's done be done before. I don't know, but like the uh the 4 hour watch period or 6 hour whatever it is. I was like, oh, that's and they work it into like the mechanics to make it kind of make sense. It was a nice little additional segment of time. Um, I
Yeah,
thought.
I read that. I didn't fully understand it because I think I think I said perfect. There may be a few things like they did talk about saves versus checks versus whatever, and where they described it, I wish they would have put the mechanic in it because the mechanic's elsewhere. So there's a few things I did see that check, and it was utilizing the Swordfish Isle, which I didn't realize had this, was using the poker chips.
Yeah, the poker chips. And
I didn't really get the color until I thought about it, the color scheme of black, gray, yellow, yellow, gray, black. And it's like, then it hit me. Oh, I see what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. See, that's kind of cool. And I didn't know it was from
yeah. So you get the passing of time. So now it's dark, now it's dusk, now it's, bright day.
Yeah, which is, whoever came up with that, I love it.
Well, yeah, that would be
it's great.
Yeah, so
Jacob,
I think
part of the crew.
Yeah, so I think no, it was so I'm excited about playing. So one of the things I didn't, or just briefly looked over too, is if you are for starting out, they had one where you're like a prison break. And then they utilize locations to kind of follow, like it's already established. And one of the things you can do is like maybe 6 different things where you can start out.
Yeah.
In the prison break, they already used locations and told you how to use those. There's like a boat is stashed here, and there's a group that's here, and you're going to interact with these people, and made for good or for bad. And it's kind of really cool how they use that setting in that jailbreak option. Is like, it's not on top of the exploration, but it's well, it's like the way they do the random encounter. I don't know, the whole thing is well done. It just and I don't know how they made any money. I don't know. For $100, I'm thinking, how did you afford this?
Yeah.
Cardboard minis, cards, maps.
Yeah, and it's all like very, very high quality.
Yeah, the books are like the best I've seen. So anyway, I was pretty excited about that. I'm gonna have to get those guys on. I have to get Trevor Stamper on so he had some questions he was wanting. So
nice. Yeah,
especially I think for publishing what they did and how they did it.
Yeah, I mean, you've published some stuff. Like how many times have you been like, well, I'm not making any money off the Kickstarter, but everything after this, every book I sell will actually make money now. I mean,
well, I pretty much went into it where it broke even. I said, well, that was fun. I guess I'll never make any more money off of this. And then I still sell them, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing was, it funded a print run. They had to do an offset press, probably overseas.
Yeah.
Still $100. That was way too good of a deal.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good deal for sure. I didn't have to stop and think. I'm like, well, it's a little more than I spend, but look at this. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. So now
that's probably. Go on.
Oh, I was just now I'm wondering about doing I probably won't ever, but I kind of wonder, well, try to do a box set someday.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought of it, with Ruination Pilgrimage, how Mothership eventually went to the box set that they're working on right now with 4 books. I'm already like, well, I could do a box set someday. Adventure book, couple big adventures, the Ruination Pilgrimage, if it ever comes out. That I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what those guys are doing who run that company.
I guess they're not in a hurry.
To be fair, they're still within the allotted schedule.
Yeah, I think that's just it. I mean, me, I just for myself, I just need to get that dumb thing out. But I could see from, if you're a person who said, you know what, we've allotted this time, we're going to utilize this time, and we're going to send this to proofreaders 30 times and editors 7 times. I mean, there's value in it, especially with that level of just saying, we don't care. We're just going to make sure it's perfect when it's done.
Yeah. And, keep on playing it and like, oh, you know what? This would work better this way. So it's only getting better.
Urban Shadow's the same way with what's their names? The ones that did the Avatar, the Last Airbender. It was just such a good deal. I had to getting it, and they're delayed. And Avatar, they just put it on hold after that, and they're
Mhm.
apologetic. But you know what? I don't care. I'm not jonesing for it in a big way. And I figure when it comes out, it's going to be right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you see it, you want it, you'll wait, right?
Yeah, and there's been certain systems I have gotten and been wanting to play, and it's been top of my list, and I'm actually waiting for it to come out to start playing it, and then it
Mhm.
doesn't show up, like Cortex Plus. It's like,
Mm.
but like 5 years later, 6 years later, he's finally delivered, but then it's too
Oh,
late. I don't
really?
care anymore. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody
yeah, there is
cares.
that. There's this like there's this line where like you're good up into that line and then you're like you're past it. No one cares. How do you
Yeah.
keep people interested?
Well, I think one is you publish it in a pretty good amount of time. And
that's a
then
that's a solid start.
yeah, then you keep putting stuff out to support it.
Yeah, you know what? I think you had the secret right there. It's a 1-2 punch. Do it and then keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, with your, I've seen you've got some updates, or I say updates, but I've seen some of the layout and the art for Ruination Pilgrimage. Looks
Yeah.
beautiful,
Is it? You like
beautiful.
it? Yeah, yeah. I'm liking the way it's coming together, like those character pages. Like at first, I was like, "This isn't really what I pictured," and not the colors I pictured. Um, but then I started playing around with it in the layout. I'm like, "Woo!" I'm excited.
Yeah, there's something to be said about just working something and working it and working with it and working with it and working with it. I know a lot of times with design, of course, I'm not, neither one of us are trained or professionals with this,
No.
but there's a certain amount of just keep willing away at it and adding and taking away and adding and adding and taking away and changing. And finally it's, then all of a sudden you start to see its potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like probably that was the fourth like different rendition, and like I'm glad we're there. Like I think it's good. Uh, those pages at least.
Just the rest of them.
The rest, there's still some stuff that's getting ironed out that we haven't. It's summertime, so it's hard to get my group together in the summer. Some of them have kids, their vacations to be taken, and I mean, I was pretty crazy this summer. Like people are graduating. Daughter went off to college, so doing parties, getting yard ready, blah blah blah. Like it's been a really busy summer, and whenever I can, I sneak down to the basement and do some stuff.
Yeah, my wife and I started doing disc golf, and that's taken up a lot more time, but it's than I ever expected. But it's it's only for during the when the weather's good, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something we both can do together. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's like I'm not going to not do that, but still,
right.
it's like thinking fall and winter's coming. I'll be
Yeah, yeah. See, yeah, and that should probably be. I need to readjust some thinking. Like that should be my project time, not summer when it's nice. I'm sitting down in a dark basement.
yes.
And I need to stop running Kickstarters in January, February. I think it's a really bad time for that.
Why is that?
Um, it's right after Christmas. People have spent a lot of money, maxed out their credit cards like good Americans consume, and then tax season is approaching. Um, and I don't know.
So when do you think would be a good month?
I think, man, that's a good question. I don't actually know yet because I always do it in January, February, and I think in the summer, maybe I've seen people do it concurrently with Gen Con, and then they can like be schmoozing there, handing out cards. Might not be a bad idea. But you also won't have eyes on your project for a week, because everybody's there. Uh, Maybe launch. Well, you want a strong launch though. It's probably a science and an art, and I have not ever figured it out.
So I did, a certain amount with Gary's Appendix last year about this time.
Mhm.
And I did issue 2 during the Zine Quest, and people talked. They were wondering if Zine Quest actually hurt, and I actually did pretty decent. And I thought, well, Zine Quest for Gary's Appendix 4 or 3, I thought I'll put more emphasis on the cover, and did a few other changes, and put it is the same time that Gary's Appendix 1 is, but I made more money to Gary's Appendix 1, but I have less people pledging for this than I did the other 2.
Hmm. So that's never a sign that I like. I always want, I always want to grow it like each time,
Yes.
right? I mean, you're trying to build something.
Yes.
So yeah, that's discouraging.
Yeah, it still did. I mean, it still did well. But
Hmm.
about $1,000 short of what I did the previous. But what's interesting is I probably made but Zach put together some higher tiers, and those carried a lot. They carried a lot of the Kickstarter was the higher level tiers.
Mm,
So
yeah, I need to start doing the high level tiers. That I think it's just good. I think Sean McCoy and I did. I don't know if I mentioned this. We did like this big interview that we posted to our Substacks. I think when I was running the Kickstarter campaign, and he had a lot of good advice for Kickstarters and campaigns, which I think that Substack is called Failure Tolerated. If anyone wants to look it up, and there's some good stuff on there that I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
well, part of the issue too is I've been a little more prolific, and Zach is from World Game Design and helped me with the Kickstarters. Wonder if there's just if I'm doing I'm planning on having 5 total Kickstarters this year, so it's
Mm-hmm.
basically
Yeah, that
once
is a
every 2
lot.
months.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. What there's a lot. Like I don't like to complain. Like there's so much stuff coming out, but there is like there's so much product. Which on one hand is great. Like we have anything we could want. Like somebody's doing it. If no one is doing it, then you can do it and publish it, right?
Right.
But there's so much like you can't keep up, and all the like link sharing on the social media crap is garbage because they want to throttle that so you pay more to spread it. Um, Twitter's falling apart.
Yeah, I didn't think it could be any worse, and Elon still finds ways to make it worse.
Yeah.
I still am perplexed and dumbfounded by that whole. And even he has dreams of making what they call it like an all-in-one app.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you think you would not drive away all your users before you have dreams of making it an app that
Right.
everyone wants to use for every aspect of their life.
Yeah, you think you'd want to make the base so great that people were signing up instead of shedding,
Yes. Yeah, it's I think that the place is getting dingy, the roof is leaking, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still there, and the power's going to eventually get shut off, and we'll be squatting there, and I mean, till finally the police drive us away. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just there's no good alternative.
Yeah, have you seen Blue Sky yet?
No, I see people going there.
Mm-hmm. It looks just like Twitter. It's freaking hilarious. Like you've got your same layout, your same setup. You can like a tweet, you can retweet it, or I don't know what it's called there, blue sky. Do you fly it into the sky? I should see what they say.
Yeah, I signed up for Threads and was very underwhelmed because obviously when I came to Twitter, it was already 1 trillion people on Twitter, and now I
Mm-hmm.
go there and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something will take its place eventually, I guess. Maybe
Something good though. I mean, really, I think I don't know what the key is. Just like the newsletter / blog thing that Substack can do seems promising. You know, if you have your backers sign up to a newsletter, which do you do that?
no. I'm thinking about actually paying somebody to do a newsletter for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really do a newsletter, but when I launch something, I have the people there.
Well, the thing is, for me is, I mean, I have podcasts, and I also do fairly regular Kickstarters, so it would make a whole lot of sense that I at least have some sort of, regular communication, whether it's quarterly or whatever it may be, even monthly.
Yeah,
it would look more professional.
Yeah, and I think every publisher creator should have a newsletter with the standard. I never use mine, but I have it. People say, "Oh, you have to have one."
I think the problem is that's I find that kind of writing painful and very difficult.
Right, because you have to be excited, and you just really want, like, I don't know, like you can be excited about your product, but not really do it in the salesman way that you need to.
Yeah, I think the thing too, it's like it's already happened. I'm already moving on to the next thing. And so I guess I could, and I don't plan ahead, so it's not like, hey, coming up next month is such and such and such and such and such. It's just, right. I guess, I don't know. I'm not a self-promotional person. That's, I think, just a lot of it.
Coming up next month, probably Donn and at least one so, because I don't plan ahead.
Actually, I did plan. Well, not as well as I should have. I've actually, this is what's hard, is I have reached out to a number of people and not either have not heard back or it just timing wise hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
And I hate to throw, and I don't want to like put out like say 8 invites and now having to juggle 8 people, but I have probably put out like 6 invites and it's not worked out the best. But I'm not worried about it, but it's just like, and also me doing this weekly, there's no reason I have to do this. It's just whatever reason I think I do.
I guess people like regularity,
Well, I don't think it's anything about people. I think it's just, for whatever reason, it's one of those stupid things, and my brain just says you need to be doing it, and then I do it. There's no rhyme or reason.
So people don't watch you or listen. Just kidding.
You might. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not here. I am.
I'm still doing it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just like, it's like even the numbers there kind of have gone down, but I still have people that are regular listening and new people coming on. So probably like my Kickstarters, people say, you know what, Jeff will always be here, and anytime I want to jump into the Jeff stream, I can get caught up. I don't have to,
Yeah. They'll skip those boring Donn episodes because nothing really is talked about.
It's funny what episodes do well and which ones might say do well and don't. Mostly it's the YouTube that will fluctuate the most, and I don't really understand who or why. And even the regular podcasts, it's like sometimes I think somebody on, it's like, well, I'll probably get a lot of people for that, and hardly anybody. And other times it's like, no, there's a lot of people that are interested for whatever reason. I'm not sure if it's because of promotion. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of weird. It would be kind of interesting to know. I mean, I have some assumptions about like the demographic audience, but I really don't know who the demographic audience really is.
Yeah, because you're not like, this is a podcast about old school essentials. It's just, this is Jeff's podcast where he rambles. And if you're lucky, it's going to be something about RPGs.
Yes. Eventually there'll be something RPG related that'll come around.
Yes.
Yeah. And if it's funny because somebody posted something, maybe I don't know. I want to talk. Well, maybe I do. It's funny the AI. Somebody posted something. Hey, you ought to talk about this about the AI art, and I'm thinking, well, I'm really not. I don't really consider myself like a news person, but
Mm-hmm.
then you posted something about AR, and I just about responded,
Yeah.
and I'm like, nope. It was to one of the fellows who respond to you. So you talked about I guess that's probably a good thing to talk about. So you talked about your position of AI art. So
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
your position of AI art, or is your position?
So I'm never going to knowingly use AI art in my publications, and that's not to like I don't hate it, but at the same time, I love the process of finding artists, following them on social media, reaching out to them. Like, I don't know these people, but it's fun to be like, hey, and every single one I've approached, except for maybe one, like got back to me and we worked something out. I love the commissioning aspect. I love doing the briefs, look like this. I love that a living person on the other side can take my thought and make it their own, like, and come back with an angle I never even thought of because that's a person who has their own experiences. So I like that so much. And I like, I've become friends with artists. I'm not gonna. It's screwing them over. I really think it is. Like they would have had money in their pocket if you had not gone a cheap route and just generated AI yourself.
Yeah,
You're
and
taking food out of their mouth.
I don't find there's anything controversial in your position. There's a fellow who the reason I almost posted was a fellow who says, yeah, art should just be, I think basically that should just be in your Kickstarter, and that's what your funding is, part of his
Mm-hmm.
art. And I started to respond why people don't or may not, and I also wonder if that guy had ever kickstarted anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. He did a zine.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I totally like that's the reason. Like I did my first book, Lesser Key to the Celestial Legion. It was pretty much written. I didn't have any money for art. So I was able to. That's why that's why I kickstart more or less. There's also the aspect. It's its own kind of generator for backers, right? People see it better. And if you run a few, you should be getting more each time. Sorry, you don't, but
Yeah.
uh, because it kind of is like it's his own engine because people who follow you then that hey back another project by this guy and like so of course it's not the only reason I use Kickstarter, but it is an important one because I don't have $3,000 sitting around to get art.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to. And the thing I thought about saying is because even that guy's position in itself, I didn't think was wrong. But what I will say is, for some people, the you really need to have a successful Kickstarter. You need to have at least some art in hand.
Right, and that has been a couple of my projects. I've been like, well, we got this Kickstarter going on tomorrow. I wait till the last minute, and people have been like really cool about, hey, I'll get this art done really fast. You can put it up there. You can pay me when you can. And people I barely know who I've worked with once or twice before have been like that. So
Yeah, but I mean, but for like somebody like you, you're the person speculating, and I would say I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what the breakdown of uh of Kickstarters, but probably a lot of people are just trying to make a few $100s, and so
right.
one is it's very hard to, I think, for people who don't have it, there's some people who want to put something out, and then also the expectation. I think that what makes it hard is it's easier to have zines aren't like they were probably like 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So the expectation is to be more polished.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for people starting out, especially, it's much harder to rise to a level that they feel comfortable with, to try to compete enough to at least generate some sort of reasonable sales.
Yeah.
And so I am sympathetic, and I have used for one product I have used art, but none of the other ones I have. And I also, for that one, I actually commissioned a lot of art. I just needed more art, and I just ran out of money.
Yeah.
But that was also before things got as controversial. And so right now, you know, what I'm going to do is going to be another Kickstarter for this project, and I'm just going to replace all the AI art with commissioned art. But now I can afford to, you know.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of like, it's easy kind of, and in fact, there's a guy on DCC who published a project, and he said, yeah, it's all AI art. And man, those people, some people just let him up. I'm like,
yeah, and that's kind of why I posted what I did, because I'm like yeah, people are frustrated, but also I can see where, like, he's in the marketing field, right? And I think his response was, I didn't think people would have a problem with it because in my field they're loving it. I'm like, well, of course, yeah, you can whip it up in marketing. You don't have to pay an artist. You know, it's still ugly because they should be hiring a real artist or a real
yes,
photographer. I think that's the root of it for me. I don't like it because it is taking money away from artists who, I don't know why. I don't want to go off too hard here. I don't know why those tech bros hate any kind of creativity and they want to monetize everything. Um, yeah. See, I'm just gonna go downhill from here.
well, the one guy, and he even basically said, you know what, I realized my mistake, you know. And he said, you know, I'm going to work at trying to, you know, through this. And I thought, you know, and people posting that they didn't want to buy it because I thought it was all legitimate, except for after the guy says he's going to replace it. One guy said, I still will never buy it because you originally were going to do it and you apparently don't have a problem. I just thought, people can't have a change of heart. People can't have a change of understanding. It's
I totally agree with you on that. Like, yeah, once like someone's alerted and they're like, oh, I never considered that aspect. I think I'm going to change my mind on this and try it this way. Like, you can all lay off now, you know, like, and I totally, like, you know, I saw it and I'm like, well, I'm not going to back as many things in the future because it's just, I have so much stuff. Like, if I move this camera around this basement, there's a 3-foot stack. I guess most of those are my books, but whatever. There's a 2-foot stack of books that I don't need. You know, I got to chill out on buying things. But as soon as I saw it was AI art, I'm like, I'm not going to buy that.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is I'm not a fan necessarily of AI art, or necessarily a big fan of AI, but the other problem I have with it is I've looked at enough and I've generated enough just for concepts and stuff and just trying things out. I can spot it. And maybe I'm wrong because there may be some sort of bias, but like I can spot AI. I mean, he first put that out, like, that's AI art. And I don't normally, I've seen enough of it. I don't really care for it. There's some that's been done well. And obviously maybe I wouldn't know, but it's just like, it was very obvious from the start. And I'm like, I thought that's probably going to be problematic. I just didn't realize how problematic it was going to be for him.
Oh, especially for the DCC crowd, because they are, like, you know, they're into art. You know, I should say we're into art because I consider myself a DCC person. Yeah, I mean, art, like, you know, that rule book is full of amazing, you know, line art, colored art. Like, Doug's stuff is just great. So yeah, I think if it had been maybe for another game, another pot of people, it maybe wouldn't have been so, like, full on.
I think the other thing too I've noticed is it seems to me that the stuff I've seen for DCC and MCC is the community in general is fairly good about supporting people, even with the art that isn't that great. Like, they are in general fairly strong at supporting the people that create for that community.
Yeah, agree.
And so there really wasn't a need, but then again, he just, you know, he didn't have a clue.
No, yeah, different culture, you know.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting. It was interesting to see where this will all go, but it's just definitely right at the moment. It's, not as currently, I think it just looks, it just has a certain look that's just not cool. I mean, I think it's great, and there's a lot of problematic things. So, if anybody out there is thinking about using AR, just may want, if you don't have any problems with it, you just may want to think about long and hard before you issue something out. But I think I've even seen, I hate to say this, the problem I'm also starting to be is I'm starting to see some people are artists where I'm almost positive they're using AI art, like people in the industry. I'm not going to say who. And there's one person in particular who's fairly reasonably well known. I'm pretty sure the product he put out was using AI art.
Yeah, I got the zine a while back, and like, there are a couple art pieces listed for the artist, and then the rest just aren't. And I'm just like, is that AI? Like, when it's like, so and so did this cover in the back, and then nothing's listed for the inside. Like, yeah, that must be AI art.
Well, for me, it's there's weird artifacts that a lot of times get generated, and people don't go and clean those up. And there's something about the way the lines are done. Sometimes it's just like strands of hair that just look weird, or things that come off. It's just, and it's like, if you're gonna try and pull that off, just clean it up or something. But man, it's just
And there's that recent thing with Wizards where the artist had done it in AI and then digitally painted over it, and it was a big stink. And I think it should have been. I mean, I can see like using these prompts, because if you've ever seen like some artists work, they'll actually like lay their reference out on like their iPad or whatever, and they'll draw over it, and that's like, you could do that with the AI art that was generated if you're actually going to like cover it up and use it as a reference, and not just like, oh, let me just change the fingers and make them straight here. And, so I think I mean, I get the addiction, other than the, oh, we're going to save so much money by not giving it to an artist. But like, just the standard user can sit there and generate really cool art, for them, the way they want it, and they can see what happens when they change the, description or whatever. I don't know how it works. It's magic as far as I'm concerned.
Foul magic.
Yeah. Yeah, because don't you put your fingers in your slime bowl in the computer, and it kind of like,
and it feeds off your soul a little bit.
Yeah, that's how computers work, right?
There's a little bit of a soul tainting going on. So it'd be interesting to see where this all leads. But I'm just surprised that you have to know, having seen that piece, that the art director had to have known.
Right, because that one was especially easy to spot. Like, if you looked at the dude with the flute, like his fingers like kind of went up and around, and it was like really jacked up. I mean, it was a cool enough picture, but yeah.
It's just it's interesting that and the problem I'm also facing is, I think I'm really good at spotting AR, but I'm also seeing other people's art. Like, I went to Gen Con and there was some sort of racing game, like a gasoline, what's it, Gasoline Alley, or I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a some sort of like car. I'm looking at it and like, that looks like AI art. I don't know that it was, but now I'm starting to look at stuff that becoming suspicious in the style. It's like they could have a style that's very close to that to begin with. And now they're going to be looking at it. I'm going to be suspicious, like, and I wonder if other people are too.
Yeah. It's gonna start causing more trouble, I think. Yeah, because if people like suspect it, they call it out, and it is, then it's going to be a problem. And you know what? That's fine. It's just the way it is right now.
Well, but I think what's, to me, it's one thing where there's a guy trying to raise, $600 to, for a Kickstarter to publish a small little thing. And it's another thing where you have a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
That's, to me, it's like, I can kind of, we can, that's a little different level of scale there as far as, guilt and the need for forgiveness, I guess. I don't know. Especially when you think of, like, especially with companies that do have that kind of largesse that they can they can dole out money from and benefit a community and do so much, as opposed to some guys just trying to, got a couple of nickels he rubs together and trying to make the best of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of goes back to my Windows. For the longest time, I was pretty angry at work in Microsoft Windows, and it would do a screensaver, and I know they were pulling like images from like Flickr.
Oh yeah.
And they were terrible. Well, I don't want to berate anybody, but you could tell they were getting free images from somewhere. And they were putting across all these machines throughout the world as part of the screensaver, as part of the background. And I'm thinking, you're a why couldn't you just say, we're going to, finance, we're going to do a contest, $5,000 per person, 20 photographers, and do that once a year. It'd be nothing to them.
Yeah.
But apparently somebody had a budget of $0 and they just went with it.
Yeah. It's really about the decline in membership in libraries and museums around the world. No one appreciates art anymore, Jeffrey.
Until I spent some time in Belfast, I really missed the museum there. I never thought I'd ever say that, ever. It was free. It was great. It was free. It was just amazing. But here it's like you have to go a long distance and it's not free.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But you can kind of go to any kind of museum, can't you? It's a firehouse museum down the road.
Yeah. You got a good point there. What do I have around here? You're right. I'm close enough to a Route 66 museum in Pontiac. There's a museum that I work for my company. They've got a museum. I've been through once because it was free, but they normally charge money. There's a local museum, but it's high enough price. I just don't really feel it. I don't know. For me to spend $15 or $20 to go to a museum, it just doesn't. For a smaller city, it doesn't seem reasonable.
Right.
It's kind of
I'm sure every little town has a log cabin museum, right?
We do have a Mennonite museum, so that is, you're right. I haven't been to that one. That one probably is free.
Oh, we had a bunch of Mennonite people in the Thumb of Michigan.
In the Thumb of Michigan, because only people from Michigan talk about their state as a hand.
It's clearly a mitten. People who complain about this are jealous.
Yeah, it's very convenient. It's funny when you said thumb. I was like, thumb. It was like, oh yeah, the thumb.
I was born there, and I'm over here right now, and I love to go visit here. It's just easy.
Yeah, Michigan just seems like a kind of interesting state. I think of all the places, other than the harsher winters, I probably wouldn't mind spending some time living in Michigan.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't want to move. It's got the cool stuff.
We went to Grand Rapids, and I was just shocked. Well, we spent a day or two there, and of course, it was built off of the tiers of Amway, of all the sorrow and grief that they've caused. But it's just like it's like ruined my mom and stepdad's marriage. But they built a nice park with statues in it that you can go see.
Oh yeah, like the Meyer Gardens, right?
It's like statues. That was called. Yeah, I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So what are you working on now, Don? Are you have anything besides you're getting to Ruination Pilgrimage? It's starting to shape up.
Oh, yeah. It's getting very close. I've had almost all of the adventures come in, except for maybe 4. And it saddens me, but that's the way it is.
But wait, let's talk about that. So you had how many people did you have lined up?
Like 13, I think.
Oh, so
I knew it was too many. All right. But how do you like you start asking people and I actually asked artists who I've been buying their art for a couple of years. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to have an artist do an adventure. I asked friends. I reached out to people I didn't know. I'm like, hey, your stuff's pretty cool. Why don't, oh, you know what? I just did that the other day too. Uh, I was like, oh, have you thought about writing a like? I love it. It never hurts to ask. That's going to be my advice for everyone in the future.
It never hurts to ask, but also you need to plan in the possibility it's not going to work out.
Oh yeah. So when you have 13 people writing adventures for your new game that's not quite ready to share yet, yeah, it's crazy.
So I guess you have to look at what you promised. Did you promise 13 adventures? Or do they have to be those 13 people?
No, you know what? I don't know. I should, you know what? I should read that because I'm already like, somebody fell out early on. So I replaced them with somebody. I just asked. I'm like, hey, I love your stuff. Um, you know, would you want to come write? It was a yes, but then uh, wasn't going to work out due to schedules. And you know what? My biggest problem was I asked people who write, and most of them publish their own stuff because I loved their works and I wanted them to come write for me. But the problem is, if those people have to keep on writing their own things and writing for me sometimes, and I do the same to people, I'm sorry, to people I've promised things to, and I have not done yet this year because I've been working on my own thing. So it's just like, when you reach out to fellow creatives, you might have to assume that they'll be on fire for their own stuff. And it was kind of hard. Like I would send very, very rough, like rule documents and like, Google Drive. Be like, oh, it's going to look kind of like this. The rules are here, but they're just not formatted very well. And so they
Oh,
didn't have
that
much
is
to work
hard.
off of.
That is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have much to work off of. So, or they didn't have much to work off of. General tone. But no, I've gotten some great stuff. Like I'm excited to get to work on that and start sharing. I'm excited to get it done.
Well, could you,
Get it out
this
there.
is, could you do this instead?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've kind of worked on this way with some people. It's like, could you just say, I want you to write adventure. Uh, just kind of pretend it's in general like another system, but don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about the mechanics. Just write the adventure.
Yeah, that's what has kind of happened. Like
Yeah.
eventually I'm like, just write your general theme. I'll stat it because I know the stats. I know how that's going to work. And, I'll touch in here and there. Um, so like they're basically submitting mostly finished drafts and then I'm just kind of like making it fit.
Yeah, because that makes more sense because it could be, the ease for them to write the adventure is, that's pretty straightforward, but the mechanics may just be, it takes just too much effort. Like the amount of effort it
Right.
takes to do that portion, that 20%. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
that Pareto principle or whatever, that probably 80% of your headaches is 20% of the work, and that's the
Yeah.
mechanics.
Yeah, and I've done that for people who ask me to write stuff. What was it? Thousand Dead Worlds. Do you remember that by Alex T?
Mm-mm.
Um, Alex asked me to write something, and I'm like, sure. I don't know how your mechanics work, but this is the adventure, and like Alex came in and filled it in or touched it up, and it's pretty cool. I don't think it's out yet. I think the PDF is out. It's like a sci-fi. The setting is like humanity discovers maybe an asteroid it's full of alien ships, and if you hop in one, it takes you to a certain place, and then you have so long, and then you have to come back. And yeah, it's fun.
So your situation. There's an idea that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody's free to steal it if they so choose, because ideas are cheap. I
True.
thought about, and I'm still maybe going to do it, but the idea was I was thinking about having a dungeon. People write dungeons,
Mm-hmm.
adventures, but there will be like, say, maybe like 5 items or themes somehow have to fit in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would do is then go to a cartographer
Mm-hmm.
and say, I want you to create a dungeon and somehow, and give just a briefest description of each room of what you see, how this would play out. And then get like 5 people with those 5 themes that somehow have to play in there, and just the map, and have 5 different people write adventures with that same map, just to see how everybody would interpret the same thing in different ways. And then you could also see, because everybody's doing the same thing, you get how different people process in format and how they look at adventures differently, and because they're all kind of sitting within the same constraint.
Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be cool to do with that then is you have your 5 versions of the rooms, and then you can actually say, oh, and this is a weird dungeon that sits between 5 different alternate realities. You can bounce between them. Like, oh, and the players won't know it, but so things might not totally make sense. Yeah.
I didn't think about having them connected some way, even dimension. That would be like, that's another level of cool I never thought of.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's best to work with someone.
Especially if his name is Donn.
Well, you know, don't come at me with work, people. Actually, I'm going to come at you guys with work.
Yes.
I'm busy.
But then I started thinking, it's like, you know, what if I depend on 5 people and everything's structured around 5 people, and then like one person flakes out, and it's just like,
yeah.
And then do I plan in such a way that wherever I get, like maybe I ask 6 or 7 people, and then if I get at least 5, I publish.
Right. What if you get 6 and one isn't very good? So you take the best 5, and then you have some with hurt feelings.
No, I do all 6. It would be straightforward. This is whoever you are, like just different people. Like, you know, some people may have a more wacky approach. Some people might have a very traditional approach. And so that's a thought. I don't know if it'll sell though. That's a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good exercise. I once was part of a what is that called? Shoot, you know, where you do a line of a story and then you hand it to the next person.
Yeah,
not Delectable Corpse. It's something like that.
Delectable Corpse.
Oh, it's close. It's close to that.
Delectable Corpse. So that sounds like a band name of like some sort of death metal group.
Right, like some members from Cannibal Corpse. And anyway, so I was part of this dungeon where it had like maybe 40 rooms or something, and each author had a room. And they wouldn't even necessarily, like, there was a map and you got assigned your room and you just came up with something based upon what was in the room and on the map, you know. And I don't know if it's ever going to be published. This maybe started in 2020 and people did their rooms. You'd have to nudge a little bit. But I think the person laying it out got too busy. I'm not going to name names here. But anyway, I really liked the room I did because I had just had this really strange dream of a demon living in my basement who you had to feed bones to every so often.
So was this a nightmare or was this just a interesting dream?
Nah, it's kind of the same, isn't it? I actually have. I don't have great dreams all the time. They're always very weird. Usually, like, I don't know. Yeah, they're usually messed up. Like so many of the adventures, even like Dead Planet. I think the Dead Planet is from a dream I had when I was a teenager. But this crazy dream and this like demon. I like the really weird part was the sewer pipe, and it just poop out like sludge and bones. in the dreams. I
So-
basically just made that into my room.
So it's really not digesting the bones. It just loves eating the bones.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was actually wanted the people, and the bones are just pooped out,
Like an owl coughing up a pellet.
much like an owl. You know what? Yeah.
So yeah, so the idea would be that the dungeon would be of a smallish number of rooms, so like maybe like 8 rooms or 9 rooms. So it would never be anything too crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You should do that.
Yeah, I think I will. I will. But I need to get past some other things first.
But my rate is only going up, buddy.
I better sign you up now. Better lock you in.
Yeah. You better lock me in.
You tell me what your Alpha, tell me what your rate is and how much time I got, how many words I get, and we'll lock you in for future work.
I don't know if that's a good deal for me right now.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard knowing. Yeah, it's just. And I'm also trying to go through some stuff. This might be a good time. I'm gonna ask him for some advice.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about doing 2 podcasts tonight. Maybe we will. Let's do this. Let's do 2 podcasts. I'm going to pause this. Is there anything we want to cover before we end this? And we'll do something else for like just a short amount of time.
Nope. You can find me at Blue Sky and Twitter and Facebook. DONN
All right. Well, it's been great having you on, and I'll have to have you back on soon, like in 15 seconds.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.